Hey, brain gardeners, grab your metaphorical watering cans because today we're talking about how to grow your wrinkly, beautiful thing in your skull. Yep, it's time for Neuroplasticity 101, aka your brain can totally learn new tricks. Science once thought that your brain was fixed by adulthood, which honestly sounds like a terrible warranty plan. Good news, that's wrong. You're not stuck with the factory settings. And if you've ever said, I just don't have a math brain, don't worry, you can literally download the update. Unfortunately, it doesn't come with a user manual or a skip ad button. Make sure to stick around for the last segment, where I'll go over how to grow your brain in a mere 30 days. Let's plant some ideas, water them with science, and see what neural sprouts show up. Now, a few decades ago, scientists assumed adult brains were fixed. Whatever you got by the age of about 25 was your brain's final form. Turns out they were wrong. Very wrong. Neuroscientist Michael Morzenich showed that adult brains can actually rewire after injury or training. And Eleanor Maguire's London taxi driver study, people who memorized thousands of streets had larger hippocampi than non-drivers. Their brains physically change shape. So yes, you can still upgrade the hardware, even if you're well past your Google Maps Prime. Here's a principle you can brag about at parties. Neurons that fire together, wire together. Thanks, Donald Hebb, the guy who basically turned neuroscience into a team sport. Every time you repeat something, whether it's a guitar riff, a French phrase, or your pre-meeting prep talk, those neural pathways strengthen. Your brain is constantly adjusting its playbook through repetition. And here's where it gets cool. Athletes have been proving this for decades, especially basketball players. When a shooter practices, like free throws, right? They're not just training their muscles, they're training their neurons. Each shot creates like a feedback loop, right, between the motor cortex, the cerebellum, and the sensory systems. Over time, the movements become automatic, smooth, efficient, like the brain's version of a highlight reel. There's a study from the Journal of Neurophysiology showing that mental rehearsal, just imagining yourself shooting baskets, activates many of the same neural circuits as actually doing it. Translation, your brain practices, even when your body doesn't. So if you see someone at the free throw line going through their final sort of ritual, bounce, spin, exhale, swish, that's not superstition. That's neuroplasticity in action. Repetition plus focus equals rewiring. And here's the kicker. The same principle works whether you're learning jump shots, JavaScript, or Japanese. The neurons don't care what the skill is. They just care that you show up and you repeat it. Every habit you reinforce becomes easier, faster, more natural, like your brain installing shortcuts. Ignore it, and the shortcut gets deleted. So yeah, every thought, movement, or reaction is kind of like a brain workout. You're either training your neurons to nail free throws or to scroll aimlessly and miss every mental shot. Now, if your brain is plastic, how do you steer the growth? Two scientifically backed tools, actually. Spaced repetition shows that revisiting material just as you're about to forget it boosts retention far better than cramming. Yes, your brain appreciates a good comeback tour. Microlearning. Studies in Frontiers in Psychology show our attention is precious. Short bursts, 10 minutes, beat marathon sessions. Think of it like that old HIIT training for your brain. Heavy focus, rest, repeat. Now, brains don't just adapt to facts and skills, they adapt to feelings. Long-term research, work by Richard Davidson, for instance, shows that regular meditation, gratitude practice, therapy, and even journaling can reshape your emotional circuits. You can train your brain to respond differently to stress, to calm your amygdala, to boost your self-regulation muscle. So when someone tells you, just shift your mindset, it's not naive. It's a nod to neuroplasticity. Now, your brain isn't a finished sculpture. It's a garden you keep tending. Every book, skill, reflection, or habit you practice sculpts your neural real estate. Even after setbacks, injury, burnout, learning blocks, growth is still possible. Next time you catch yourself saying, I can't change that, pause. That's a wiring assumption, not a biological law. You can change. You are changeable. Now for the fun, slightly sci-fi stuff. Sort of the bleeding edge, I guess, of brain research. There's this thing called tDCS and electrical nudges, transcranial direct current stimulation. It uses weak electrical current, right, across the scalp to gently sort of bias neurons toward activation. And when paired with training, some studies report boosted attention and learning gains. For example, multi-session tDCS over the dorsal lateral prefrontal cortex plus working memory training showed lasting enhancement in neural efficiency. But, and this is still a big but, the effects are inconsistent. Some studies in older adults showed no benefits. So yes, the idea of zapping your forehead to get smarter, it's tempting. But science says, tread carefully and don't expect miracle whammies to happen, right? Also, combining tDCS with physical training seems to boost motor learning more than either alone. So maybe try both. Maybe your brain and your abs could also benefit from this synergy effect, right? But don't try blending them into the kitchen just yet. All right, and then there's targeted memory reactivation and sleep. Here's the dream. You study a concept, then your brain replays that information during sleep via subtle cues like soft sounds, things like this. And research shows that this can actually reactivate and strengthen memory traces overnight. One experiment in Northwestern psychology had participants learn puzzles tied to specific sounds. During their sleep, some of those sounds were played back. Those puzzles were more likely to be solved later. And yes, your dreams might help you learn. Recent preclinical and early human research from Hopkins also suggests that psychedelics might be helping to reopen brain windows. Psilocybin, LSD, things like this. They have studied these things in the lab and they show that they actually might temporarily reopen. And what they showed is in mice, a single psychedelic dose reopened a social, learning, or critical period for days and sometimes even weeks. And reviews also show that psychedelics influence molecular pathways, right, tied to plasticity. So in therapy settings, psychedelics might temporarily loosen rigid brain patterns, allowing deeper rewiring under guidance. And yes, that sounds like science fiction. The ethics, the safety, the context, they matter enormously. But the research frontier is alive and buzzing. All right. So we've talked about the science, the neurons, and even the sci-fi head zapping stuff. But let's get practical. How do you actually rewire your brain in 30 days? Spoiler alert. No crystals, no cold plunges, just consistency, curiosity, and caffeine. Probably. All right, step 1, pick one neural target. Don't try to overhaul your entire personality this month. Choose one focus. Maybe it's building confidence, breaking procrastination, learning piano, or finally remembering people's names instead of calling everyone, hey man. Neuroplasticity loves clarity. Vague goals don't fire specific circuits. Now, step 2, repetition over intensity. 30 days of small repeated reps beat one epic burst of effort. Studies in Nature Neuroscience show that steady daily activation strengthens synaptic connections far better than the erratic high-effort sessions. In other words, practice like a metronome, not a meteor. Step 3, pair it with emotion. Neuroscience 101, baby. Emotion supercharges memory. When you attach meaning, joy, or even a bit of frustration to what you're learning, your amygdala flags it as super important. Don't delete. So if you're learning guitar, celebrate small wins. If you're learning patience, celebrate not yelling at your Wi-Fi. Number 4, step 4, sleep on it. Literally, during deep sleep, your brain consolidates what you practice, replaying and strengthening these new circuits. Miss sleep, and it's like hitting save without the file actually downloading. So yes, your lazy nap is actually a neural upload. Now, step 5, track the tiny wins. Each small success releases a dopamine hit, motivation's best friend. That reward loop keeps you coming back. So grab a notebook, a phone app, or carve a tally mark into a metaphorical tree, whatever helps you see growth. Do that daily, intentionally, emotionally, repetitively. And after 30 days, you'll notice it. The mental click, right? That something that once felt awkward starts to feel kind of automatic. That's not magic. That's wiring. That's your brain saying, copy that, boss. New circuit installed. So yeah, you can't grow abs overnight. And you can't grow genius in a weekend. But give your neurons a month, and they'll start rearranging the furniture. Just be patient if they move the couch into the hallway first. Growth is kind of messy sometimes. And that's about it for today, folks. That's our 4th episode of Brain Blossom. I hope you enjoyed it. Why don't you get out there, plant some thoughts, grow that brain, learn a new skill, and have some fun. Life is too short not to. See you later.